Hello fright lovers, my name is Dan Smith and I am the author of the very scary Crooked Oak Mysteries, the latest of which is called The Horror of Dunwick Farm. So I'm not going to tell you too much about this. I'm just going to start reading. I'm going to read a short chapter for you, but first of all make sure the windows are shut. Make sure your doors are locked. Have you checked under the bed? You never know what might be lurking under there. So chapter is called A Strange Silence. Of all the seasons, Krish liked spring best of all. It was especially lovely on the farm because he woke every morning to the dawn chorus of blackbirds, robins and wrens. But when Krish woke on Thursday morning, he was greeted by the sound of his dad's pickup truck grumbling as he left for work, followed by an eerie stillness. Later, Krish took his bike from the shelter at the back of the house, and the farm was deadly silent. His mum and Rashmi had already left. The hens and goats weren't making a sound, and there wasn't the slightest hint of birdsong. Even the noisy magpies were nowhere to be seen. It was as if Dunwick Farm was holding its breath. Krish waited for Pete and Nancy outside King's Corner Shop in Crooked Oak. Kids were everywhere, bustling in and out of the shop, buying sweets and cans of drink before school. They ran about and joked and showed each other memes on their phones. The air smelled like bubblegum. Every so often, an adult would walk past and tut loudly. Krish pulled his bike onto the pavement and scanned the notices in the shop window. "Anything interesting?" a voice spoke in his ear, and Krish turned to see Pete standing behind him. "Yes," said Nancy, appearing from the crowd of kids. "Look." She pointed to a poster in the shop window that showed a black and white picture of a missing cat. The name Mr. Jingles was written underneath, along with a description and an address and telephone number. "So?" Pete said, shrugging. "You need to be more observant," Nancy said, using her phone to take a photo of the missing cat poster. "Come and have a look at this." Nancy led Krish and Pete along the pavement, weaving their bikes among the other kids until they reached Hooper's village shop. "See?" Nancy said, stopping in front of the shop window. "Another missing cat poster, but for a different cat." Krish adjusted his glasses and leaned closer. Nancy was right. This one was for a cat called Henry. "And there's another one," Nancy said, pointing to a poster on the lamppost behind them. "Cats are going missing," Pete wondered. "They're not the only things disappearing," Krish said. "I mean, where did all the birds go? The farm was silent this morning. It was like nothing dared make a sound." "There are birds on my street," Pete told him. "They woke me up." "Same on Elm Street," Nancy agreed. "Well, there's something else," Krish said. "Gizmo's being weird. He won't leave the house unless he has to. It's like he's scared of something." Pete frowned. "It's something to do with that plane, isn't it? Aliens, maybe. Or vampires." Krish sighed and shook his head. "You always say that, but it's never vampires." "Come on, we'll be late for school," Nancy said. But Krish couldn't focus at school that day. He couldn't stop thinking about the birds. That night, Krish woke to noise and confusion. He sat up with a start, blood pounding in his ears as he looked around blindly in the darkness. From outside he heard a loud and terrifying scream. Downstairs, Gizmo was barking in response. Upstairs there was movement in the house, a deep voice speaking. Then light glowed under Krish's door. Krish went to the door. He opened it just enough to peer out and see his dad on the landing, pulling on his scruffy Chewbacca dressing gown. "Dad?" Krish whispered. "It's the goats," his dad said sleepily. "I better go and check." The thought of going outside filled Krish with dread, but he had to be brave. It was what Pete would do. "Oh, I'll come," Krish said, grabbing his dressing gown. His mum and Rashmi followed them downstairs, turning on all the lights. They waited in the kitchen with Gizmo while Krish and his dad grabbed their wellies from the mat by the back door. Krish's dad turned his boots upside down and gave them a shake before putting them on. When Krish did the same, he jumped back in alarm as something large fell out of his boot. It hit the floor with a solid plop and rushed away under the cooker. "Oh my God!" Krish said, his heart beating even faster than before. "What was that? Was that a spider? It was huge!" Gizmo whined and ran out of the room. "Forget it," his dad said. "We need to go." They switched on their torches and headed out into the cold night. But Krish glanced back at the cooker. He had the most horrible feeling that something was sitting in the darkness beneath it, watching him.